This is related to a video I just made, I think, talking about how and why like young men are getting radicalized into the right-wing pipeline. So my view was the left, quote unquote, are so focused on like talking about and trying to help like all other marginalized people, gay people, trans people, homeless people, you name it, and men who have all the institutional power currently, because we live in a patriarchy. Men's issues kind of fall through the cracks. And who's there to scoop up the men's issues? Conservatives, because they're not spending any time worrying about those marginalized people. I'm curious what Hasan has to say about it.
The reason young men flock to alt-right MRA movements is because the left gives brain-dead advice to young men. We need to be more compassionate to them for our own sake.
I don't think men are flocking to the MRA movement because the left gives brain-dead advice. It's just we're giving them advice that they don't want to hear, maybe. This is a problem that the left has. We're saying you have behaviors that need to change, whereas the right is coming in and saying, no, just do exactly what you feel and then don't worry about anything else. And so we face an uphill battle in our messaging, whereas the right does not face a similar uphill battle, in my view. And Hasan is like one of the only good forces able to do this on the left, like give good advice to young men. As Vosh says down here, doesn't Hasan literally do the Chad Vice segment? So that's like a segment where he tries to give good, progressive slanted advice to young men. And unfortunately, he is kind of the only voice on the left doing that. Everyone else does not give on the left, does not give any time of day towards men's issues. And that is a problem, I suppose, as we're seeing, because they're just flocking to the right, who are giving the time of day to men's issues. They're in a bastardized way, obviously, but they are giving them the time.
Men don't fall down the alt-right MRA pipeline because the left isn't doing good enough outreach. They choose to subscribe to fascist ideology because they have an investment in maintaining their position in the social hierarchy, and the liberation of other groups threatens that. That is absolutely correct.
Hasan, okay, so I disagreed with that statement in my stream yesterday. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And so men do have all the institutional power. And so as, other marginalized people get more institutional power, cis men will, to an extent, have less institutional power. But I don't think that's why young men are flocking to the right currently. I believe that is true in a lot of cases, that statement, but I don't think that's why the young men are flocking to the right. I actually disagree with this statement, and I disagree with Hasan here.
Nah, most 14-year-olds don't care about that. They just want to own the libs. No.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with the chatter here. Like, I don't think 14-year-olds are going to the right because they're scared they're going to lose their institutional power. Like I said earlier, I think they're going to the right because they're the only ones speaking to them at all. Like, whether it's, period. Whether it's their bastardized version or something more productive that maybe the left would do, we're just not talking to these young men, period. We're talking to every other community, but we're not talking to, cis young men. I don't think it's because they're worried about losing institutional power.
I can get the average dude to agree with every major feminist tenet.
Yes.
As long as I don't call it feminism.
Exactly. The word feminism is poison because we are, all of us, everyone, are naturally, maybe not progressives, but normies are naturally sexist and misogynistic. So you call your movement feminism and you've already lost people. I talk about this all the time. How the left sucks at messaging.
Yeah. On the other hand, they tell these men the problem isn't within themselves at all.
Yes.
They are fine.
Exactly.
The way they are. It's
exactly.
The world that's
this is kind of what I was insinuating earlier, is that the left is hey, you got to change things about yourself. You got to be less misogynistic, less whatever, transphobic, those aren't the best examples. But the point is the left is telling young men, you have to change things about yourself. And the right is more no, don't change anything. Don't fix yourself. Don't grow. You're perfect the way you are. Which is it's not healthy. You should learn and grow.
People on Twitter talking about how you need a leftist advice guy or whatever who doesn't just exclusively talk about theory or anything like that. My take on it is I'm right here, man.
Yeah, but the problem is you're one guy, Hasan. There's one Hasan, and then there's like a billion guys on the right, whoop, of a similar size, with a similar sized audience, you know, who focus exclusively on those like men's issues. And Hasan does not focus exclusively on those men's issues. He has like, he talks about them, you know, he intersperses that in his streams. He's got his Chad Vice segment that is relatively rare. But yeah, and I do think Hasan is very important in the sense that he does make progressivism accessible to men, to younger men. And he talks about this all the time. Like, he makes misogynistic jokes. He presents himself as like misogynist passing. Those are his exact words. And I think ultimately, you know, it shakes out to be a good thing. But my point is, he is one guy, and it's not enough to combat. Like, one person versus an army, it's just not enough.